on WRFP-LP 101.9 FM.
Okay, awesome. So 7:30, let's call the meeting to order. Does anybody have a printed copy of the agenda?
Oh, I knew you were going to ask about that too. Does Chris have one?
I don't have another fresh one of that.
All right, we'll just wing it for now.
She might have one.
Thanks. Okay, so first of all, Sarah, do we need to do a roll call? Yeah, let's do a roll call. You know, everybody's in quarantine, so let's if you can let everybody know your presence. So we'll start just in the order that they're here. Catherine, you out there?
Present.
Awesome. Good morning, Catherine. How's it going?
Good, thank you. You must have missed my comment earlier when you said RDA Pandemic Edition. My stress laugh was to laugh through my nose, so good morning, everybody.
I'm trying. Connie?
Good morning. I'm here.
Good morning, Connie. How you doing?
Hanging in there.
Awesome. Dale? I don't know if we need to do roll call for staff.
Good morning. I am here and doing well. Thank you.
Oh, great. Jason? These are just.
I'm here.
Good morning, Jason. These are just the order that I'm seeing them, so please don't take any offense to who's first and who's last. Jay?
I'm here.
Awesome. Morning, Jay. Jenny?
Morning.
Yep, I'm here.
Morning, Jenny, and hey, welcome to this group, too.
Thank you. Good morning.
Last time, too, but I didn't. Sorry, we didn't. Do you want to say a few words in introduction?
Sure. Jenny Fesemeyer. I'm with the Pablo Group, and I'm excited to join the RDA. What's that?
Awesome. Good to have you on board. Christine?
Here.
Morning, Christine. Rick?
Here.
Morning, Rick. Scott?
Good morning.
Yeah.
Did I hear Scott? I think so.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, good morning.
Morning, Scott. Steve?
On the computer.
Morning.
Morning, Steve. And Wayne?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, awesome. Morning, Wayne. Okay, I'm going to call this meeting up and running. So first item of business is approval of the minutes from 8/19. These were distributed, I think, last week. I believe that's when I got them late last week. Could I get a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion to approve, Connie.
Dale, second.
Moved by Connie, seconded by Dale. Any discussion or questions on the minutes? Okay, look for a motion for approval, vote on approval then. All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Okay, I'm going to call those minutes approved. Thanks, everybody. Let's move on to the...
That's new. Just
Yeah, item 4 is throwing me for a little bit of a loop here, so I've never seen this before, so
we ask that, and if we get a response, we move on.
okay, cool. Okay, so new thing here. Hey, exciting. So open public comment period for items that do not appear on this agenda, noted as public hearings or items for public discussion. So are there any comments or, I guess, items that folks would like to discuss in this period? And I'm going to kind of scan for the hands up signal here, or any. Okay, so I'm not seeing anything, so I'm going to call that one done. Next item for business then is the financial statements. Jason, are you doing those? Or?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, I'm doing them.
Thanks.
All right. So attached to your agenda is the RDA Actuals and Budget Report as of August 31st, 2020. This report presents year-to-date budgeted and actual expenditures in the operating budget and actual expenditures in the capital budget. Revenues and expenditures and other funding sources are reported once they are realized. As of August 31st, 2020, fiscal year 2020 RDA operating expenditures totaled $10,839. Of that total, $9,000 was spent on Block 7 for marketing the site, and $1,839 has been spent on stormwater charges at 2000 Oxford Avenue.
Thanks. Any questions on the financial statements? Okay, seeing none, I'd look for a motion to approve the financials.
So moved by Wayne.
Seconded by Connie.
Moved by Wayne, seconded by Connie. Thanks, everybody. Vote, all in favor of approving the financials, please say aye.
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 Okay, I'm going to call those approved. My apologies for reordering the questions here in the movement. Don't tell Roberts that I did that. Okay, so item 6 on the agenda is the public discussions. We have actually a few things, some pretty cool, exciting news today. Aaron, I think this is all you.
Yes, thank you. So this is Aaron. The two items we're looking to address next are both actionable items. The first up is the purchase and development agreement with the Children's Museum of Eau Claire. As we referenced last month, they had signed their purchase agreement, so it's ready to go to the RDA board for approval. We talked a lot of detail about it last week. I'm just going to hit a few key items, pullouts from the development agreement that was sent to you over the weekend. The purchase price was confirmed at $10 a square foot. We do have an allowance for up to $105,000 of land credits to be used towards any additional soil remediation or soil analysis or testing or site issues that might come into play or find out might be uncovered during the due diligence and the preparation for construction. So we did allow for some credits in that area. Commencement of construction is to begin in the year 2021 and looking to have permits issued for permit of occupancy issued by the end of December 31st of 2022. Obviously, COVID has shifted a few things around, but we think there's enough flexibility built into there to be able to accommodate everybody and their concerns. One other piece specific, the building as they presented, and you're seeing the cover shot of the proposal that they'd sent in is there on the slide screen. They're looking at approximately a 23,000 square foot facility. They have extensive design work's been done and approved through their board. We are currently doing the certified survey map. Staff has just got approval and a quote, and they're executing that here in the next few days. So the lot split will be formalized. Monarch Ventures taking the south piece, and of course the Children's Museum taking the north piece. The other piece that I wanted to call out was the tax status element. It does list their existing building. Within this agreement, they're committing to $500,000 minimum tax valuation on the current site, the old facility. That payment doesn't come into play until 2024. That gives the Children's Museum time to move that building, get moved out, and get it turned over to a new owner, and the new owner then will be beholden to the minimum tax value that will come into play. So it does provide some new tax, and it's guaranteed to provide some tax increment into one of the TID districts. As I said, that's kind of the key elements. At this point, I'm asked if there are any questions in regards to the developer agreement.
And scanning for hands or?
So, Aaron, I'm just a little bit confused on that pilot. So, will there be future pilot money on the new site, or is it just on the old site that we'll get money from?
That is just on the old site, which is currently not on the tax rolls. So we will see a net gain within the TID that it resides, but there will not be any tax money on the new facility or our property tax facility.
Okay. No value minimums or anything like that?
Correct.
Any other questions? Okay, Aaron, you're looking for direction on this?
Yeah, our next step would be for a formal motion to approve and a vote to accept the development agreement. That would be the action item, line number 2.
Yeah, excuse
Excuse me, Aaron's absolutely correct, but just to clarify, this is a signed development agreement already. We just missed the deadline for your last meeting, but this is an executed sale and development contract, so we need your review and approval. And while talking, Aaron did a great job of summarizing. The only other key negotiating point was access to parking in that adjacent city parking structure. There are a number of stalls that would be tied to this development, and about half of them will try to be family and children friendly, placed throughout the parking structure, not specific to use for the Children's Museum guests, but whether they may be attending the museum but could be attending Phoenix Park or a farmer's market or some sort of festival, things like that. And there is sufficient lease space in the parking structure. It was pretty tight when we started negotiating this, I guess for reasons mostly bad, frankly. With COVID, there's a little more leasable space in that structure now, although still very well utilized. But yes, we are looking for a formal vote to approve this, and then we would have a binding sale contract with the Children's Museum.
That's great.
So Steve, if things go back to normal, and people are back in their office working, what does that do for parking?
It was negotiated and set up with full parking use by both RCU and JAMF as the primary users, and still does contemplate that. So there is sufficient space, but that's a good question. It also considers, and there's still capacity for the merge project just across the street on the railroad lot that wasn't RDA land, so you all didn't vote to approve that one, but there is sufficient space for all of those users, especially with a little bit of different time emphasis on some of them, particularly the Children's Museum being one of those, I think, we think, good users where they're going to bring positive traffic to this part of downtown, as they have for over a decade at their current location, but they tend to do it at different peak hours from the office users. Some overlap, but some different time frames as well. But even if we go back to full parking, we've got capacity, Connie. Thanks for the good question.
And what about when if Monarch Ventures, gets on lot 2 and their parking needs?
Correct. We still have to get to a development agreement, but we are at an MOU with them, and extending the MOU with Monarch is your next agenda item, I believe. And there is capacity. There is still capacity, but I mean, when we were having these discussions with engineering last year, Aaron and I mean, we were starting to move to percentages that of capacity that then are very tight, and so you start relying on the fact that all users won't be there at all times to make it work. We weren't exceeding 100%, but you were getting into that, less than 5 to 10% open, which feels awfully tight for folks, and of course then leaves very little leeway for hourly users. But there was capacity even with Monarch.
I would add with Monarch too that in their case, particularly because of the ground floor restaurant, their peak times are definitely outside of standard business hours or office hours. So it's evenings, weekends, which has a little extra capacity within the parking space. So we feel like they should be able to accommodate their needs.
Okay, thanks everybody. Is there any other, I just want to make sure, because people are kind of just jumping in here, I want to make sure everybody has a chance to speak. Okay, so not seeing anything, then let's go ahead and move forward. So look for a motion to approve the development agreement as presented.
This is Wayne. I'd move that approval of the development agreement.
Okay, thanks.
Second, Kathleen.
Thanks, Catherine. Okay, moved by Wayne, seconded by Catherine. Do we have that? Okay, any further questions on the motion? Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
All right, I'm going to call that an aye. Thanks, everybody. So great work on that. That's really good to see that moving forward. I like the design here on that too. My daughter said it looks cool. So.
Dr. Kemp, would you ask just to make sure there's no nays so I can capture the numbers?
My apologies, thank you, sir. Any nays on that last motion to approve the development agreement? Okay. Thanks, everybody. So next item, same part of town here. Extension of the MOU with Monarch Ventures for redevelopment of a portion of the liner site.
Yes, thank you. So we are still negotiating with Monarch Ventures, obviously COVID, and this is ground floor is a restaurant project. COVID became a concern to them and they're a restaurant group. It slowed their process down. We are coming to the end of the existing MOU, and we're still have a draft development agreement that has not been finalized. So the extension that you see before you is simply to extend the current terms of the MOU to the end of the year. That gives us time to continue to work with Monarch and their staff, working with the architect that they have engaged, doing the CSM, the certified site map, or survey map, and gives us time to complete the process. They're still very interested in the site. They're still actively looking for tenants in the office space, using a local real estate company to represent them. It's still very excited about coming to the community. So, and this is a project that we really like, fits well with the space. So we would recommend that we go ahead and extend the MOU to the end of the year to give us time to finish out the process.
Very good, thanks, Aaron. Any questions on the presentation? Okay, then I look for a motion. Actually, we don't need a motion. We need a motion on the extension.
On the extension,
yeah.
Correct.
Okay, so I look for a motion to approve the extension with Monarch Ventures and development agreement that will lead till the end of the year.
So moved by Connie.
Thanks, Connie. Moved by Connie. Second.
Second by Wayne.
Thanks, Wayne. Moved by Connie, seconded by Wayne. All in favor of extending the development agreement?
Aye. Aye.
Okay, any opposed? Okay. Sarah, you good with the? All right, awesome, thanks.
Hey, Tom, I have a question. Are we supposed to be seeing other things on our screen? Because all I'm still seeing is a children's museum photo.
No, not for us.
It will be moving. We'll be moving it next. That was just kind of a placeholder
Okay.
until we got to the heirs presentation.
It's all I'm seeing too, Connie.
We're not frozen, I promise. I hope we're
All
not
right,
frozen.
wasn't sure. Thanks.
It's a good looking picture though, right, Connie?
It is a really nice picture. I like it.
I hope it comes out that way.
Yeah, right?
Is it frozen?
No, I just have to figure out how to do this.
Okay.
So just give me a second.
Okay, so let's see.
There we go.
That's
All right,
that one.
great.
I don't think it's moving out
Okay,
there.
so next item is moving on to our business agenda, excuse me. So we have at least one item here for review for the Block 7 concept. So this is just to bring people up to speed. So RDA has been working on this area for quite some time. And maybe 6-7 months ago, we had a presentation about some possibilities. And we moved to go forward with I think it's heirs, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So move forward with heirs, and this is now the presentation of sort of what we had asked for. Aaron, are you doing this?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. All right. Great.
So thank you. So as Dom had said, we were looking for a massing study, basically an analysis of Block 7 to determine what can be fit into there, and utilizing above ground parking as below ground parking. The previous proposals that had come forward before the RDA that were not selected for development on that site always included underground parking, which had a significant price tag, which had a significant ask of assistance from the community, which exceeded what we could do within that site. So meeting with staff from heirs, they looked at the space, looked at the capacity and configuration of that area, and they came back with this packet of concepts, and then we asked them to take one of the concepts and develop it further into some elevation drawings and more site detail. So the first few slides we're going to look at are the different massing options that they presented to us, what can fit theoretically into that site. The one on screen now is option 1, which is kind of what we originally started this conversation on, which is that traditional referred to as a Texas donut, a fully wrapped parking structure with development on the outside. We actually weren't sure you could even fit a traditional Texas donut in this space, but AIR says it does have capacity to work. It's not an ideal way to develop. It's single-loaded apartments, which means there's only apartments on one side of the hallway surrounding the structure, but that type of building would fully cover or fully enclose any type of parking structure. This, as designed, would have about 103 resident capacity. We carry about 118 parking spaces, and the red on the bottom is highlighting potential commercial space on the ground floor along Barstow, which fits in with the comp plan. So this was option 1, kind of the starting point. Going to the next slide. So option 2, again, just playing around with configurations. Another option is to build, as they identified, a horseshoe-shaped building with parking taking 1/2 of the lot. In this case, it would be along Hobart. It provides a little more multifamily capacity for residents. 149 units could be fit in this configuration as drawn, 125 parking spaces. Provides that inner courtyard instead of having parking fully in the middle. But as you can see, it's not an attractive site design. But it definitely increases efficiency in terms of number of parking spaces available, or excuse me, residential units available. And again, the red and yellow are identified as potential commercial space. Let's move to the next slide. So option 3 looked at splitting it into 2 buildings. The smaller building along Barstow would house the commercial on the ground floor. The yellow that they've highlighted in that massing design, they identified as a good potential for live workspaces. So large apartments that also service as the space where somebody conducts a business. You could be looking at an artist studio where they're living and working in their space and selling out their space as well. That building would be on Barstow. The parking would be then in that L-shaped section. The parking would be cover the full ground floor. And then this shows 4 stories of residential on top of that. The densities have improved in terms of residential. This configuration would handle 156 residential units, 126 parking spaces, and it's good, efficient use of the space, and definitely a lot more attractive in terms of a design, or at least as far as massing goes. So let's go to the next slide. So option 4 took the same concept as option 3, only it enclosed the parking along Hobart. The parking doesn't go all the way to the street. They actually brought a row of apartments down to the ground floor along Hobart Street. So it then fully encloses the parking on that side, provides better screening. As you'll notice, it did drop a floor off of it dropped 1 level off of the residential units based on parking availability. This design has 115 units of residential, 103 units of parking. So you lose a little bit of efficiency by doing that, but it does also provide a better, kind of a more attractive front along the Hobart Street. Go to the next slide, please. The 5th massing option they looked at was the same design, only instead of enclosing the parking along Hobart, they did it along Wisconsin Avenue. So on the north side of the building. Gives a different front to the businesses that are located on Wisconsin, across the street from Block 7. The efficiencies are about the same. You're looking at 115 units. So I think I skipped one. I take that back. The previous option was 109 units of residential and 103 units of parking. This configuration actually moves the residential units up to 115, so you gain 6 units by taking the residential to the ground floor along Wisconsin. And again, maintaining commercial space along Barstow in that smaller second building. Again, identifying the centerpieces as good potential for live-work units. It's interesting, we've been having some inquiries in the city about the availability of buildings that could be purchased for exactly what this is, which is live-work type of space. Businesses who are interested in operating their business on the ground floor and then living in an apartment, say an above-ground unit. So this type of configuration is catching some inquiries. The city is catching some inquiries from folks interested in this type of development. So I think there's a potential for the market on that. So these are the 5 options they felt made best use of the space in terms of just purely look at massing and placing buildings within that square footage. Any questions on these before we move into details on one of the options?
Okay, any questions on the presentation? Okay, I'm not seeing any. I have one question.
Yes.
So we talked about inquiries with live workspace and things like that, and that's been an interest with several iterations of this. So that's great. Do we have any market demand-based research for this besides that? So
we've got
different plans here, right? With different combinations of commercial and residential. Do we know if there is a market preference for one breakdown versus another?
Not specific in terms of the building configuration. We do see one of the recommendations they're making when they look at the commercial space is making it flexible and capable of breaking down into the micro suite type of retail level. We have seen evidence that there's greater demand for that. We see a number of requests from businesses looking to come to the downtown area. That's the type of space they're looking for, oftentimes 1,000 square foot or less, which we don't have really anything of that size right now. And a lot of the buildings we have that are open are not conducive to breaking down, to separating down to something that small for usage. So we have seen evidence and we are seeing reports and interest from potential tenants and potential users for space of that size. That's the same type of size that the railroad lot project Merge is doing on the railroad lot is looking to do on their ground floor as well. Flexible retail space that can break down to very small units as needed or can span to larger units. Gives a little more flexibility to the building. Obviously, this is something we've seen. Pricing becomes a major factor. Can they get the cost competitive? Particularly when a lot of folks coming in the downtown area are looking at older building price versus new price. Your costs on square footage leases are going to be different. And sometimes it's an adjustment for folks who are looking for space to realize that new construction has a new construction cost to it. But we definitely see the interest in those type of size, and we think it's probably gives a project developing that way some of the best chances of seeing good occupancy rates.
Yeah, thanks for that, Aaron. You read my mind with what was going to be my next question. I was actually reading through this. I was a little pleasantly surprised because I believe these commercial rates, build rates, and subsequent rental rates are actually lower than we saw, I think, 3-4 years ago last time we went around on this. So that's a positive thing. A lot of it will ultimately be, and that's something that the full report that we'll discuss next really talks about is working with the right developer on the property who has the experience to leverage the scale of the building to achieve lower costs of construction, who has enough experience that can get a little more creative on financing to keep costs low, who has equity to bring in and not looking at exclusively borrowed equity. Those types of things when you're working with the developer can also greatly impact how building cash flows as well. Yeah. Wonderful, great work, everybody. Any further questions on the presentation?
Well, I have a question here, kind of unrelated to the presentation, but you referenced the railroad lot, and I know we didn't own the land or voted on that, but can you just share quickly what's the plan for that site?
Yes, so they are looking at a mixed-use development site, 5 stories total with ground floor commercial, space on either end to potentially do a restaurant, so it can be configured in a larger space, and then micro retail or flexible space in the middle. The rest is 68 units of studio 1 and 2 bedroom apartments, mixed pricing. Most of it is what we consider to be workforce geared housing, so mid-priced, targeting folks who make between 80 and 120% of the median county income. It has a lot of public amenities tied to it. There's the boulevard, the boardwalk on the riverside is going to be tied in the trail system. Parking will be left open and available. Their intent is to leave the surface parking available for folks who, not just for the tenants in the building, but for other businesses. There will be about 44 units of underground parking within the space. Has a very clean design, very modern look, fits well. The scaling and the height fits well with the area, so it's a really nice, clean project. And they feel very.
And that is moving forward.
Correct. They had the site plans approved, and they are going through their preparing their construction schedule, and they're hoping to see some work occur on that in November of this year.
And then what is our next steps here on Block 7?
So what we'll do is take the next package that we're looking at, which has some elevations and it kind of shows what a building could look like in that space. We're going to start by taking that back to developers who have shown an interest and submitted a proposal into the Block 7 site. Reaching out to them and seeing if this configuration and doing this type of construction, which is different than what was submitted the last time, would have an interest. I've already spoken with several of the ones who've submitted in the past, and they said yes, they would like to see this packet and would like to talk about, you know, the potential to go back in and resubmit with something using maybe a configuration similar to what AIRS is recommending within this study. Outside of that group, then we will take the same documentation and shop it out to our broader development network. We're getting really good feedback from that process in the Cannery District. So we think this would be a good continuation of that type of process. We're going to try to avoid doing a formal RFP. We've actually heard from a number of developers on our development list that we worked with in the past, over this past year, that they are no longer responding to RFPs. They feel like the proposals tend to be a little too rigid, and it's hard for them to create flexibility within a defined structure of an RFP, so they're just not responding to them anymore. So we think this approach, which is having some concepts or some models of what could fit in there, is a better approach to get them thinking about, you know, going away from the underground parking and going to vertical parking structures and vertical construction and trying to hit some decent densities and mix of units within that site.
Thanks. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Any further questions?
If not, I'll move forward on the elevation drawings. We have a few more slides that highlight some specific option. It's option 3 listed in your packet. So the next few slides are some artistic renderings and elevation drawings of option 3. So as you can see, this is the 2-building structure. Smaller building along Barstow with the larger building in the back portion of the lot. 3 stories on the Barstow side, going to 5 stories total on the other half of the lot with parking under the residential side along Wisconsin. This would give approximately 200,000 square foot of total space, looking at a minimum of 150 residential units with a building configured like this, and approximately 5,000 commercial space on Barstow, which is smaller and flexible space. Structured parking under the building would be reserved for the building tenants and the businesses. The alley separating the 2 businesses, AIRS identified and recommended it, and staff liked the idea of making it more of a pedestrian alley with pedestrian amenities, you know, like cobblestone pavings, places to sit, greenery within inside that space to make it an inviting place for pedestrians to walk back and forth through while seeing this business or going to other units in there. Again, the recommendation on the Barstow side is live-work units on the ground floor, and their recommendations were based on, as it says in their urban style residential units that have already gone up, similar architectural elements and similar design feel. So going to the next one. Here's some additional interior exterior renderings of what they see that building could look like on that site. As you see, it provides a lot of massing, a lot of density, which is what we had been looking for. You know, the capacity for a very attractive facade. the lower right-hand corner is an envisioning of the pedestrian alleyway. Go to the next slide. So again, different vantage angles of what the building could look like within the Block 7. The lower right-hand corner again is a little more detailed picture of what a pedestrian alley could look like. Again, it's designed for folks to walk in, to enjoy an experience down that site. Would allow for minimal services of the buildings to come down through there, but really is intended to be for foot traffic. So go to the next. So here, they did a rough estimate of how they walked into the costing of this building. They're utilizing roughly $160,000 a residential unit as a basis to build the budget. So that particular building, as depicted, would be about a $31 million build. And expected to, at stabilization, they would expect property tax valuation of just over $25 million at stabilization. Some recommendations they also made included, when working with developers and looking for projects to go into the site, again, it's not necessarily specific to this building, but specific to working with developers in general. Maximum flexibility in how they build into the site. One thing they mentioned with doing 2 buildings in that site, it would allow a builder to phase into it, which can help spread their cost out over a greater amount of time instead of having to generate full construction at one shot. Make sure we're very clear on the parking. We do use a lot of the parking allowances available in this. Parking is still going to be tight, in particular if you do a larger residential density type units in there. So flexibility built within the codes to allow for some alternative parking options to be utilized in that building would help make the project more viable as well. Something they also recommended, and this was something that they've seen other communities utilize who are looking to do projects, providing like land grants or land credits on sales, and then taking a piece of the project on the back end if it sells within a certain amount of time. You can capture some of that revenue back if the building sells and changes hands. So there are some creative ways for the community to gain additional benefit from that type of building besides just getting the property tax. So they had some additional information on that within the packet, but it's something they're really encouraged to look at as, you know, out of the box type thinkings on ways for the community to benefit besides just, you know, working with them and getting a property tax valuation back. So that's, like I said, a very quick overrun of that one option within the packet that they submitted. Any questions on that?
Yeah, not seeing any hands up or anything. So I want to say quickly thanks, Aaron and city staff, as well as the good folks at AIRS. It looks like a lot of creative and smart thinking with this, and I really appreciate that. Particularly some of those details about where the commercial is versus the residential. Yeah, cool. Very good. Very good. Connie, did you have a question?
No question.
Okay, thanks. All right.
No other action take on this, just wanted to present the information that was put together by AIRS. And I wanted to thank AIRS team for working with us on this. The ideas that are coming across are really good. There's a lot of additional information that they're going to be providing staff that we can utilize to help approach and work with developers on. So it's more than just what's been presented here, but we're limited on time, so we're trying not to have everybody here all day.
Yeah, absolutely. I have one brief question. So
yes.
You discussed about RFPs and sort of where the marketplace is at this point in time. So then, presumably, these documents that we're generating here, these designs, would be shared with potential. Okay, right. So it's not.
Correct.
It would essentially become an informal rather than formal, right? Okay.
Correct. And again, preferencing that this is not what we expect somebody to come and build for us. We just want these to be used as a model to show what could occur within that space. Thinking differently, thinking outside of just a single building with underground parking. It shows options and ways that can be configured in there. The next step would be to find the builder who thinks, yes, that option right there, that fits within what I do. I can make that work, and I can make it work economically. that will allow us to then start moving forward on getting that project marketed.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Okay, great work, everybody. If there's nothing else on that, we'll move forward. Yes, my apologies for the delays here. I'm sort of going through my various windows and making sure that I don't see any hands up or other things. I don't see anything. So let's move on to item 8, which is, item 8, subsection 1, which is the Executive Director's Report.
Yeah, so the big piece was the AIRS presentation. We're still seeing a lot of interest in the Cannery District. We've had a couple of new developers have reached out. They found it on our website. They found the master plan that was created by Vanderwall Associates on our website and really like what they saw. So we're starting to talk about some additional spaces in there. We still are looking at working with our local builder who had an interest in what's referred to as the Kessler Bowl. We have another group that's shown some interest in what will be the development where Kessler Park currently sits. Still seeing some definite interest in that space. We've had some interest also in sites that don't quite fit the development plan. So those we generally encourage them to look at other locations. We help them find other potential spots. We're trying to stick to the concept that was created by Vanderwall and the board approved last year. But interest is still running strong. Obviously, not seeing a lot of ready to build now projects. COVID is still keeping folks thinking fourth quarter, first quarter next year before they really start taking a hard look at potential projects. But it hasn't scared, I've said this before, it hasn't scared anybody off yet. A lot of the same builders are still showing interest in the space. So really excited about the potential down in that area.
Aaron, do you want to bring up the Canner or the room project for the awards ceremony?
Oh yes, I would also add the Wisconsin Economic Developers Association has their Community Economic Development Awards, and they believe they are tonight. Virtual this year. We submitted the brewing project as a renovation and redevelopment project of excellence for community. They were named one of the 3 finalists, so they are up for the CEDA award for renovation and reuse, and we'll find out tonight whether they get the award or not. The board that picked it really liked what they did in that space, so it's a good project.
That's great. Yeah, they've done a lot of really cool stuff over there. Stuff that'd be well-deserved recognition. Is that a statewide award then?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. Wonderful. Okay.
And that's all I have.
That's it. Okay. Well, sub-item 2, future agenda items.
And this would be something if the board or any board members has anything they would like to maybe see come up for discussion down the road, this would be a point to bring that up.
Okay, again, I'm not seeing anything. I'll give it a few more seconds. Okay, anybody, any items they'd like to see? All right, well, I think we have a lot to work with as it is, so that's probably okay. Announcements?
Nothing else to announce from our end.
Nothing else to announce? Anybody anything to announce? Exciting vacations?
Nothing here.
All right, well, thank you, everybody. That's the last item. Then I would again, thanks to everybody for being here this morning, and everybody for all the work that was put into all these items this morning. And look for a motion to adjourn then.
So moved, Connie.
Okay, moved by Connie.
Second, Catherine.
Catherine, seconded. All in favor of adjournment, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, looks like we have adjournment. Thanks, everybody. Have a wonderful day. I'm going to call adjournment, looks like 8:15. Thanks again. Take care. Stay safe.
This program was brought to you by a cooperation between Newsworks and the City of Eau Claire. A transcript of this meeting is available for the hearing impaired. It will be available within 7 days of this telecast. call 715-839-4912 or TDD 715-839-1689 or write Eau Claire City Clerk, P.O. Box 5148, Eau Claire, Wisconsin 54702-5148. Newsworks is made possible by continuing community support. If you would like to volunteer or make a donation, please contact us via phone at 715